All right, so welcome everybody. Great to be here with you, wherever you are, whoever you are, whether you're listening or watching this live, or whether you're looking at the recording. I'm excited to be here and to be talking to you about the sacral response generator process and manifesting generators, since I am an MG myself. So, um, yeah, lovely to be here. I see some people are on the Zoom. I know that some people, there's more of them on under one account. Uh, I'll be looking at the questions at any point. If you have a question, you can type it in the chat, and you can also unmute yourself if if you want to. Let me know. Raise your hand, and I'll ask you to unmute yourself. It is allowed. Anybody can unmute themselves. And let's get going into this topic, which, of course, concerns two-thirds of the people, because two-thirds of the people are generators. And so, a big chunk of what I'll be saying applies to uh, all generators, be it the pure generator or the manifesting generator. But then I'm going to spend some time towards the end of this presentation talking exclusively about MGs, because I think there is quite a lot of misconceptions about the manifesting generator and what does it mean for them to be MGs and what is their process. And it's taken me quite a lot of time to get into that myself. So yeah, having said that, let me first of all just check. Yeah, I hope you can hear me well. And yeah, let me just say a little bit about myself, just few things, so that you know who's talking to you today. My name is Jakub, and I come from Czech Republic. This is my birth information in case you want to do my chart. I am an MG 2-4 profile, incarnation cross of the Sleeping Phoenix, as you can see. I started my human design experiment in 2006 and took all the foundational and professional training courses with Linda Bennell. It was before even HDS existed, but I took it with Linda Bennell. And then all these courses with John Oblivion of Human Design America. And I became an analyst in 2009, started to teach LYD shortly afterwards. And for years now, I'm teaching professional training, all the levels of it, including the PTL4, the final preparation for certification exam. I've done quite a lot of courses and seminars, many of these live, because I live in Czech Republic, and for years I've been doing all these courses like LYD, ABC, even professional training in Aura. And since 2015, I've been a teacher at Human Design America. And yeah, it's been a great experience since the get-go, since I met Human Design, and I started with it because I wanted to get something out of it for myself as a predominantly individual creature. And pretty soon I thought, well, this is so cool, I'd like to share it with others, and I'm still doing that, since after all these years. Now, what do we have here? Oh, one more thing about me. Part of my incarnation cross is gate 20 line 4, which is called the application. And so my passion in human design from the beginning was trying to like explore how is it possible to transform the understanding of human design into right action, which is what gate 20 line 4 is all about. You have probably encountered this yourself. I've had the experience of it myself, and I've met it with, many clients and students. I did over 3,500 readings throughout all these years. I pretty much don't do readings anymore, but it's been a lot of people that I met, most of them in Aura. And every time I was sharing these buzzwords like response or waiting or satisfaction and all, the other ones, especially when it comes to the strategy, like what does it mean to wait for the invitation, for example, and so on. Every time I was doing that, and especially for myself at the beginning, I was always trying to unravel what does it actually mean? What is actually the essence of it? What do we mean by the word response. Where does it lead? Where does it take us? And that human design is a fascinating field of study. You can study it for years and years and years. It's a body of knowledge that rightly should be part of a university education. And I believe, in some years it's going to be offered in that way. But how do we actually put it into our daily lives? How do we actually, make the leap from being in awe with the system that is so detailed and so worked out and so true and can describe us to such a great detail into a place where we actually are living it from inside, And part of what I like to say is that when you look at the chart, anybody's chart, when you look at your chart, this is mine, obviously, when you look at a chart, it's not a piece of paper, or in this case, your screen, your monitor, or whatever, that you're looking at with some weird stuff on it. It's actually like looking in the mirror. And this shows you something that you can't really see yourself, especially as the red parts over here, where we know this is the intelligence of the body, the unconscious quality within us. That's kind of unconscious, so it means it's kind of hidden from us. But the combination of both red and the black, the unconscious and the conscious, it's something that shows over here in a way that we can really see ourselves, just like we can really see ourselves from outside, except when we look at the mirror. Or, if somebody goes around you with a camera and records you, then this is kind of a feeling you can get from looking at your chart if somebody helps you to translate what it says, and of course, the more you dig into human design, the more you can discover this for yourself. So, what does it mean to respond is a big part. It's the starting part of this presentation of mine. So let's get into it and let's explore it together. So you can see generators, 66% of population, 2/3 pretty much. Magnetic, enveloping, and generating aura. And here you can see all these channels that are known as generating channels or generator channels because they come from the sacral center and connect the sacral with another center. And, each of these channels come from one of those sacral gates. And we have another slide here with all the gates in the sacral center and the various keynotes that are assigned to them. The archetypal sacral yes, the archetypal the power to commit, to stay with something, to be engaged and involved comes from gate 29. For example, right? This is the gate that has the power to say yes. 59, the power to break down barriers, achieve union. 9, the power to focus, and so on and so on. So, all these generator channels, and you need to have at least one of these channels to be a generator. Obviously, you need to have a sacral center defined. All these generator channels come from the sacral center, from one of those gates over here, and they have this quality, this power, which is so powerful that it defines the way our aura functions. It defines what our aura does, that it actually acts as this attractor that's taking into ourselves anything that comes from outside. And all these channels give us a certain keynotes that we can look at, and we can combine the keynotes for these gates and for these channels to come up with the overall keynote for the sacral center. When you hear keynotes for a center in human design, what you're hearing is kind of the distilled synthesis of the various gates and channels that are possible in that center. So here are some of those keynotes for the sacral center. And these keynotes are, just looking at the chat. I'm actually going to also look at the people in the class. So if at any point you have a question, as a generator, I really enjoy somebody asking questions so I can respond and just, keep talking in response. That's always better. Let me know, raise your hand or type your question. Ideally, raise your hand and ask, and hopefully I'll be able to see when it happens. So these keynotes for the sacral center: life force, you know that one for sure. Sexual energy, obviously. Power, response, connection, engagement, endurance, fertility, sexuality, availability, timing. Some of those keynotes, it's not the complete list, but these are some of the keynotes for the sacral center that I really like to use, that are pretty major and that give you some feeling for what we're actually talking here about. We're talking about this incredible power that animates everything, you know, that animates the physical form so that it becomes alive, right? The whole planet is a generator planet, that Ra, as Ra used to say, you know, that this planet is teeming with life. This is, you know, everywhere, you know, everywhere we go, jungles, oceans, wherever, you know, even the fields, despite the, you know, the agriculture trying to kill everything with the crazy pesticides, even there the life exists, right? And so when we're looking at generators and we're looking at the generator type, and we say, well, the strategy of a generator is waiting for response, then we can go like, okay, sounds cool. Now, can you actually tell me more about what the response is? Response comes from the sacral center, okay? Sacral center is one of the uh, possible authorities within the human design, right? We all have some kind of personal authority. That is the voice of truth within us, as I like to say, the voice of truth within us, our inner GPS that always tells us where to go. There is a whole number of these. You can see over here that we have 7 modes of personal authority. The first 2, actually, when you generate your human design chart, it actually says no inner authority, which technically is correct because the inner authority isn't there, meaning the authority for these first 2 modes of authority is not associated with one particular center within the human design body graph. So there is no so-called inner authority there, but it's at the same time somewhat confusing for people because they go like, oh, so that means I have no authority? No, everybody has their authority. Everybody can make their decisions in their own way, in their own unique way. And of course, reflectors and mental projectors are very specialized configurations. You can see it's together, you know, 4% of people in the world, and 96% of the people have what we call the inner authority. But everybody has their own way of making decisions. Everybody has their own authority. And the sacral center is the second most common way of making decisions, right? It's the second most common decision-making center. Um, and, you know, we know the solar plexus obviously is almost half and half. Uh, you know, for years we used to say it's 50% of the people. Now, because of the Jovian statistic that's always being updated, we can see that it is 46% of the people. But then at the same time, there is some 4,000 less females in the world than males, you know, largely to a fact that females are kind of uh, what's the right word? Marginalized, and you know, especially in Asia, which has the biggest number of people in the world, you know, they're doing a lot of female abortions. So, you know, that may be part of this disparity, but solar plexus is pretty much half and half. Then the next authority, and the one we're talking about today, is the sacral inner authority. Now, it can be also in case of a generator, but if you're a generator and have a defined solar plexus, you're not only waiting for response, but you also need to feel over time that the response is there, that the engagement of your life force is there. Okay, I'm not gonna go there today. That's not the topic for today, but just to see, you know, we're talking about 1/3 or more than 1/3 of people in the world that have the sacral authority. And even those who have the emotional authority and are generators, meaning basically 66% of all people, what I'm going to be describing as a sacral response, it applies to all of you, okay? So, what is the sacral authority and what is it making decisions about, right? This is an interesting question that I've heard Genoa Bliven ask once. Genoa Bliven is my friend, mentor, and head teacher of Human Design America, and he was saying, well, what is the authority making decisions about? We always talk about our capacity for decision making, but about what? And then he said that the authority is making decisions about that which enters into us through our openness. Okay. So basically, our authority is deciding about that which enters into us through our openness. This is Genoa's chart, for example. And so you can see in his case, the splenic authority is making decisions about anything that relates to life force, about anything that relates to solar plexus, especially because Gate of the Revolutionary Principles is his part of his incarnation cross, especially he's looking at the reality of solar plexus, and his authority is making decisions about that. So before we go further exploring what is the sacral response, I thought it's nice to kind of zoom out and say, okay, so we're going to talk about sacral response and how do you recognize it, but what is it making decisions about? In your chart, whatever it is, you can see the openness, be it in centers or in certain gates. And of course, part of the professional training is that you're being trained to recognize the priorities within the openness in your chart, because that's what your chart is laser focusing on, zooming in on. And when we look at the sacral response, it's making decisions about those open places. Okay. Now, here are my keynotes for the sacral inner authority. We've had the keynotes for sacral center. Now, these are the keynotes for the sacral authority, sacral response. Obviously, the response, which is the one that you can hear all the time everywhere, obviously, that's the buzzword. Then another one that I put here is connecting with, because for me, the response has a synonym in the word connection. Connection is the synonym of response. It's the moment where your life force connects with something from outside of itself. In that moment, it takes it in, it begins to rise up. This rising up of the life force is what we call the response, right? I'm just going to say it one more time. Response is the rising up of the frequency of your life force, because that is the moment when something just gets you from your chair or from your bed, just gets you engaged, and all of a sudden you have the energy which is rising up and it takes you into action, right? This thing called response is physical, not necessarily that you need to feel it physically in the body, although you can, and if you pay attention to it, then you will, easier and easier over time. But it is physical in terms of it is about your power and your capacity to be engaged with your power, with your life force, in a way that you enjoy it, that you enjoy yourself, right? Now, of course, you've heard the signature of generator is satisfaction. Okay, but satisfaction is like really the ideal experience of response. If you respond, and you keep responding, you use your life force in a way that it wants to be used, that you enjoy yourself, and if you keep enjoying yourself, you are really satisfied. I mean, you can imagine yourself, whatever it is. I don't know, somebody likes surfing, somebody likes skiing, somebody likes running, somebody likes walking through a forest. Somebody likes making love to their partner. Most people like that. In the same way, it's like this whole body satisfaction. Okay, ideal response. Now, it doesn't have to be this wonderful best possible response ever. It can just be that you're doing something you enjoy. You wouldn't say, "Oh, I'm so satisfied drinking this tea," but you may be like, "Okay, I really enjoy drinking this tea." So what I'm saying is there is like a progression scale, you know. On one end we have the frustration, on the other we have the satisfaction, and in between is, oh, it's okay. Nothing really bad, nothing really wrong, nothing really exciting. I can do that. It's not that exciting, but it's not like I'm suffering, you know. If it really isn't for you, you go like, well, I really don't enjoy it. It's boring, it's exhausting. It can go to all the way outright frustrating. Okay, that's a scale. On the other hand, if you go up, you go like from, oh, okay, then you go like, oh, I start to enjoy it. I like it. Perfect, great. I feel really, really satisfied. I feel really, really alive. Okay, and as you do that, you know, that is the felt sense you're tracking for. You're learning to track within yourself for these states of, you know, being, you know, either satisfied or going towards satisfaction, like you enjoy it, your energy is involved, engaged, you enjoy it, or you go like, yeah, I can do that, but you know, I can see it's just really my mind making me do that, you know, because you know I told myself I need to do that, or I promised such and such that I will do that. I can live with it, but then you know it goes like, it's actually I really don't enjoy myself doing that, and it can be like it's actually quite tiring, and I'm getting really frustrated, or even like stressed out or aggravated, you know, angry if you're an MG, right? So so, you know, the response is about connecting with something. Your life force connects with something. It's like if you have a seed and you water it, and the seed takes in the water and begins to sprout, begins to grow, right? It's rising up all of a sudden from within yourself. This life force becomes available, engaged. It makes you more alive. It gives you the power to be involved, connected, to go and build and create something, to build a life that you enjoy, to build a satisfying life, to build a world that you enjoy, that gives satisfaction to you. And you know, that's the way of the nature. You know, the nature doesn't do crazy things like polluting oceans and things like that. That's what humans do. So if you respond, you're gonna be aligned with life. You're gonna be one with the life force, and you will become more powerful as a generator, and you will become more satisfied as a generator. And the thing is, for that, you need to learn to track the moment when the energy is rising up, right? Now, you've all heard about the sacred sound, right? Hmm. Hmm. Energy is rising up, or mm-mm, the energy is dropping down. Or you go like, I'm not really sure. Okay, that means not for now. I'm not going to get involved for now, right? Again, the sacral sound is a useful tool. It's not the authority. The sacral authority does not equal sacral sound, although most people, as far as I'm aware, most people present it in that way. The sacral authority is not the sacral sound. Sacral sound is an additional tracking tool for your sacral response, but the sacral response in and of itself is something you can feel within yourself. This felt sense of the energy rising up. Okay. Um, and I just want to say, you know, again, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand. I'll be very happy to answer. I'll call on you. You can unmute yourself, go on the camera. I really welcome that. Just let me know. So here is a slide with a couple of things. The synonym of response is connection, as I've just mentioned. It happens when your life force connects with an impulse and begins to grow, to rise up. And so we can say the response is the rising up of the life force. And in that moment, you have the power necessary to work and build anything you've responded to. Build a life that you will love and enjoy. Jonah, come in. And if you can unmute yourself.
Oh, there we go. Got it.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, I'm Brian. I have the
Okay,
360.
hi, Brian.
Yes, I have the 360. I'm an emotional authority. Uh, I've heard Ra talk about the 360 being like very indecisive, and I think just that being an individual thing
Uh-huh.
in general. So I'm curious what you have to say about like, my experience of my sacral response is very indecisive. Like it's very rare that I have where I feel like I have like a clear response one way or the other.
Right, right. I hear you. I feel like I need to speak more about the response in and of itself, and then include the emotional authority into it. I wasn't really planning on to, but I think it's a really good question. I'd love to answer, but let me just speak a little bit more about the sacral response itself, and I'll come back, and I'll be happy if you come back on the camera when I do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Sure. Thanks. Uh, all right. So in response, you're letting your life force to choose what to engage in, which leads to satisfaction, right? That is the main thing, obviously, as opposed to letting our mind decide, which by the way is never logical. The decisions are always made in the unconsciousness or subconsciousness, wherever. And they're made from, the programs that we got installed in our early childhood, and usually also from the birth and all of that. So we know these traumatic events shape us, not in the right way. So whenever we decide from the mind, it's basically the not self that makes the decisions, right? So what we need to do is to go back to our authority, to find, as I like to say, the island of stability in the ocean of life. For us to be able to drop from the mind into the sacred response, I mean, it applies to any authority, but we're talking about sacred response here. From us to go from the mind to the response, you know, we need to offer, we need to have something solid that we can rely on before we are willing to surrender the dominance of the mind. And so, connecting with your sacred response, learning to recognize this felt sense when the energy is rising up and is engaged. And let me just go back to these keynotes, because these are really the crucial keynotes for me when I look at the sacred response. Response, connection, engagement, and endurance, right? These four are like the crucial keynotes. Like this, when the generator responds, it connects, it engages with a certain endurance, right? It's there to stay. It makes a commitment. Gate 29, the archetypal sacral yes. Whether you go, uh-huh, or you feel it in your body, you feel the energy rising up. You don't need to be making sounds all the time, your whole life. I mean, it's great. I use sacral sounds. I love to play with them, especially, like the place where I use it the most is when I'm deciding food, on my food in a restaurant. I ask my partner to ask me, well, do I want this? Do I want that? But, you know, the sacral response is in the body. Okay. And so when you respond and you are tracking that response, every time you learn to see it, to feel it, you're tracking this felt sense. This is this is your guidance, basically, right? This is what it's all about. Like the whole human design comes down to your sacral response. So if you don't respond, you're not enjoying what you do. That can lead to frustration. I mean, it's not like you're immediately frustrated if you don't respond, but if you don't respond, you're not allowing your life force to connect with things it wants to be connected. It's like if you lock children that want to play outside and put them in a school and tell them to sit still and be quiet and look in front of them and don't move and don't talk to anyone, and do that for the next whatever 15, 20 years, right? This is what happened to many people. That's like, cutting us from the life, right? Exactly, degenerating, as Christine says there. So, only through response you can truly know yourself, because it will take you where you need to go. And, you know, learning to recognize this felt sense that I'm talking about is crucial. Now, if you have a sacral inner authority, I mean, if you're an emotional generator, it's slightly more complex, I mean, slightly, yeah, it is more complex for sure. Anything that involves solar plexus is hugely complex. But ultimately, even then, you can learn to distill it down to a certain thought sense. But especially if you have a sacral inner authority, this is what it's all about. So sometimes I jokingly say, to a sacral generator, the whole reading can be said in one sentence. Just do whatever you have the power for. Whatever you have the energy for, that's what you should do, nothing else. But, that really is hard to decipher. It doesn't really seem to make sense on the surface. So we need to say more things in a reading, but and be very specific about the particular chart so that the person really connects this response to their experience, their life. But this is what it's all about, like learning to track the moment when the energy is rising up and you feel more alive and the power is there and you just follow it. Follow your authority, just follow it, just go with it. Practice paying attention to it all the time. Notice whether it's present or not. Okay, where in your body do you experience it? That's another question. We can go into. If somebody, later on, if somebody wants to play, like where in your body do you experience it? How do you recognize it? Do you feel it somewhere in your body, or how do you know you're responding? Fair question. Like, do you get a message on WhatsApp that tells you, hey, this is your response? No, we need to. The body is our instrument. We get everything we experience is somehow in the body, not necessarily only physical, like especially, when we talk about, let's say, intuition, it's not like you have, you know, something really like major going on in your lower belly. Intuition usually can't really be placed, maybe, but even then, there is a certain sensation to it. There is a certain felt sense, and that's the key. Like that was my quest from the beginning. Like me as an MG, when I've heard, you know, the whole the whole rap about responding, the sacred response. Let me just find my chart. The sacred response, and Ra speaking about responding, and of course he liked to poke fun at generators, because he saw how many of us aren't really responding, and he was just saying, just respond, like all these sometimes funny talks that he did, that was like, and it was his mantra about generators: respond, respond, respond. And I go like, yeah, I love it, but what the heck does it mean? And I was already studying ABC before I had my first glimpse of some real understanding what the response actually is. It was just a mental concept to me. Until then, it was like total mystery to me. And no wonder, because I have two channels that are manifesting, connecting a motor with a throat, which is what makes a manifester. Of course, this one is also a generating motor, generating channel, because it connects it defines a sacral center. So that's why I'm an MG, because I have two manifesting channels and a defined sacral. And, with two manifesting channels that like to go ahead as an MG, I like to go ahead and do things. Of course, it was hard for me to understand what the response is. Now I know that. Another thing about my chart, all my channels are defined unconsciously. I don't have even, I've got 6 channels. None of them is fully black, from personality. That means, I really don't get access to my definition, to my channels. I'm not consciously aware and connected with them. I know them because I know them through human design. It's been a great help, as it is for, pretty much everybody who's willing to listen. But it was just like, I have no idea what he talks when he talks about response. Even then, I loved human design. I went into it. I was, as I said, but it took me like 2 to 3 months. I was already beginning ABC course before I got my first glimpse of what the response is. So, looking at it and learning to recognize this felt sense, just like when you experience something major, let's say I don't know, if you were to win, I don't know, 100 million in lottery, you go like, wow, you jump to the ceiling. By the way, probably any type can do that, but that's not the point. It's only a point for generators to look for the sacred response. That's their gig. Okay, so we need to learn this, to recognize it when it's kind of exaggerated or kind of big enough for us to actually be able to say, oh, that is the response. Okay, and then as you learn what it feels like, this felt sense, this response, you can learn tracking it even in a more subtle occasions. Like somebody, as I said, somebody asks you, hey, do you want a tea? And you go like, okay, yeah, I'd like to have a tea. that is a response to it. There is something that connects these two experiences. One is really intense, one is pretty subtle, but in both cases, there is a common denominator. That is the felt sense. That is the response. So learn paying attention to when it happens. If you pay attention to it, you'll be able, most probably, especially with sacral response, even with other authorities, but especially with sacral response, you'll most probably will be able to place it somewhere in the body as a certain experience or feeling. That's why we say felt sense, that you experience. And when that happens, that is your energetic marker that, yes, this is my response. Okay. And the more you pay attention to it, the more you explore what it means for you specifically, right? Then you can go beyond the response buzzword, which is like, the the most common magical spell in human design, response, and you actually start learning for yourself what it actually means. Okay, so that is a word that is different and unique for everybody, and uh, and I'm just gonna go further in my talk and connect the response to the channel that defines the sacral center to bring more awareness of what I'm talking about. But just to summarize at this point, when we talk about response, we're talking about the rising up in the frequency of your life force. And that is a capacity that every generator, be it pure generator, manifesting generator, or even a generator with an emotional inner authority, you can learn to to recognize this moment when the energy is rising up. It's engaged, it's involved, it's taking you, it makes you more alive. All of a sudden you have more energy, right? And the important thing is that when you do that, whatever, and I've got some example charts here, well, I can look at mine. Whatever you do, whether anything else that can be happening when you respond. I mean, obviously I can be feeling a lot of feelings from somebody next to me, or I can be under a lot of stress and nervousness and mental pressure, right? Anxiety, all of that. That is not a response. I can amplify somebody's emotional wave. I can be higher than they are. And I need to know that, okay, just because I'm really high amplifying somebody's emotional wave, that doesn't mean I'm responding. It's just something I feel. It's on the level of feelings in terms of emotions, but it's not the felt sense of response in terms of the power availability of my life force. Okay. Let me just go to a few more example charts that I have somewhere here. Let's see over here. Yeah, somebody else over here can amplify somebody else's willpower. Sure. Or even emotions, or amplify somebody else's drive, because that's what they have open in their design. Okay. And at the same time, even though they're amplifying these, qualities like willpower, emotions, or drive, physical drive, they may or may not be responding. So the goal here is obviously over time through trial and error, as everybody does, not just the third line. We discern when we're actually responding and when it's something else that makes us engage, but not from the response, but it's a conditioned response. Let's put it that way. It's not a real response of the sacral. It's in one way or another, it's the not self that takes us into it, right? Because somebody can go like amplifying somebody else's willpower and they go like, oh, I will do that. I've got the willpower to do it. I'm going to commit. Of course they want to commit because they have gate 29, which is like a horse in the races, waiting in that box for the box to open and to charge forth and just be engaged and do things. The gate 29 wants to do that. This person was born to engage with everything they have because they've got the channel of succeeding where others fail. I'm going to give it my all and I'll succeed, right? But the response needs to come from the sacral center, not from amplification of somebody else's will or somebody else's, let's say, physical power over here in the root. And so you can be amplifying somebody else's root or willpower or emotions and have a response that says yes, or have a response that says no. basically what I'm saying is that ultimately, all these open places in our chart, whatever that is, all these open centers, some of the important gates that are open, for example, 51, because the person has 25 in their incarnation gross. Everything in the openness needs to be just a receptor of information that is then passed on to the authority, so that the authority is making decisions about that which enters into us through our openness, as I said before, quoting Juna Bliven, right? The authority is making decisions about that which enters into us through our openness. And as we learn to discern that, as we learn to see that, yes, there are all these open centers and there are all these information and energies that are flooding us all the time, we take it all in, we are learning better and better, stand our ground and be present and available to recognize when the actual sacral response happens. Okay? So it's physical. Like, of course, as an analyst, having done, as I said, over 3,600 readings until like 5 years ago when I pretty much stopped doing readings, uh, I've heard so many times people in classes or in readings saying, when I explain the whole gig about what the response is, and they go like, "Oh, and I did this and I did that, and was that a response?" And I go like, "How can I know?" You know, it doesn't really matter what it looks on the surface. The only answer to that is, did your energy rise up? Was your energy engaged? Were you experiencing this felt sense that gives you the power to be involved and start building something and working on something? Was that there? It doesn't matter what the circumstances around you were. It is only a response when your energy is rising up and is engaged. If not, then it's not a response, even if you do it because somebody asked you to. It's just not a response if your life force doesn't respond. So that's the only way, we can because nobody can tell anybody if they're responding or not. I mean, and if you're not responding, obviously you will know it because you will, you know, in the best possible case, you'll probably just be okay with what you do. You may be bored. You may be not enjoying it. It may be a drag. It may be really exhausting. It may be super frustrating. I mean, there is a scale. It can just go worse and worse and worse, but you can feel it. You can recognize it. And this, as soon as you recognize the moment of, you know, you doing something that you shouldn't be because your life force isn't involved, isn't on board, that is a moment of feedback, right? So these feelings of, being frustrated, in the most extreme case, it's not about you trying to change reality so that you're not frustrated. It's about you realizing, oh, I'm already doing more than I should be. Why don't I back off? Why don't I wait? Isn't that my strategy after all, waiting to respond? Okay. Now, this is the moment where it's slightly different, actually is different from MGs, but this waiting thing isn't necessarily that important for MGs, but I'm going to get into that in a moment. So yeah, so that's the response in and of itself. And I think to really get it, as in any real reading, we need to be specific and we need to look at specific charts to just explore it, right? This is just the overall slide I use for generators. Obviously, strategy waiting to respond. The quest is to find out, who am I? I mean, I can only know myself if I respond as generator. The non-self theme, frustration for generators and manifesting generators. And, we can also, as MGs, have all those beautiful non-self themes of manifestors. So being stressed out or aggravated or, outright angry. Of course, the signature is satisfaction. Now, here is another important principle from Genoa, a foundational principle, I would say. It's something that it seems so obvious. Authority is always operating within the context of the channel that defines the authority center. Okay? authority is always operating within the context of the channel that defines the authority center, right? So let me just give you a demonstration, okay? So here we have a sacral generator, and this person, whoever that is, has the channel of the beat, which is this direction life force about going their unique direction, gate 14, the power skills, waiting, not releasing the power until the moment when the direction appears through their receptivity in the gate 2, where the magnetic monopole resides. When that happens, the beat beats, and all of a sudden there is a response that goes like, oh, this is the way I'm going to go. I'm going to go my own unique individual way, my own unique individual direction. And that is what I live for. This is what I was born for. This is what my life force is available for. It's not available for anything else unless it allows me to go my unique individual direction. Okay. So this is a really useful way of looking at any generator's chart, because whatever channel defines the sacral center is exactly what the sacral center is going to be responding to. It's not going to be responding to anything else. As we know, the sacral center, its availability of the life force that's available in the sacral center, it's going to connect with things from outside that will allow it to somehow fulfill its purpose, right? So that we get to fulfill our mystical purpose in life, which is what we call the incarnation cross over here. But if you have the authority center that is defined by a channel, this quantum intelligence that is so creative, that's beyond our mind by far, like we can't even comprehend, this inherent creativity that's always involved in a channel. That's why Ra called them life forces, channels. When he spoke about channels, he said life forces. I mean, this is this amazing life force over here that, in this case, animates us because it is defining the sacral center. Now, what do you think the sacral is going to respond to? Is it going to respond to, like anything else but that? No, it's only going to respond to being able to go their own unique individual direction. Okay, now, of course, it helps to wait a little. Gate of waiting, right? Gate 5, the gate of waiting. Okay, it helps to wait, and it pays off to wait, because if you wait, you can then recognize the direction where you need to go. Okay, so this sacral center is only going to respond to that. Now, if you do that, if you wait to respond and you go your own unique individual direction, then all these other things in your chart will fall into place. Sure, you're a gifted critic that is born to, like correct that which doesn't work, point out the fault in any kind of pattern, stand up for the fundamental human rights, work on correcting them, with great joyousness and vitality over here, be engaged in making this world better. By the way, it is something, if you respond, you go your own unique individual way, then you can do this. If you respond, but this is priority number one. This is priority number one. This sacral center and this one channel over here is ultimate priority in this chart, because it is the center of authority, and it is the channel that defines the center of authority. So if you wait to respond, your sacral will engage when the opportunity, fourth line in the profile, opportunity will present itself to you to go your unique individual direction, be your unique creative self, be a trendsetter, point the way for other people, change their direction, mutate, become an updated version of yourself, be more empowered. All of that is because of this channel, which is individual, about empowerment. And when this first priority is taken care of, then within this foundational bedrock of your design, then it will work for you to offer your criticism, with vitality, in such a joyous way that you will get other people to see what needs to be worked on, and they will probably be able to hear the solutions that you share with them. Okay? Because after all, you have the capacity to transmit your message, right? 4426 in a way that lands, in a way that they'll get it, they'll buy it, and you will be bringing, efficiency into everything you're involved with. And I'm happy for the question. Just a moment. But if you start by criticizing and wanting to offer your unique breakthrough insights, no matter how masterful you are at transmitting your message and trying to, get people to buy it, unless you do it in response, you will forsaken your own unique individual direction. And even if you succeed in transmitting your message of criticism and organizing people for the greater efficiency and solving the problems and blah, 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 you'll never, ever be satisfied because you will not go your own unique individual direction. Okay? So, yeah, so that's what I have here. And I'm just going to go through it and then I'll go into the question. The response allows the channel defining the sacral center to be fully lived out. In this case, they will be able to go her or she, I guess it was a woman's chart, she will be able to go her unique individual direction to be empowered and potentially empower others by changing their direction, which is this channel 14.2, the beat, okay, keeper of the keys. They will never be satisfied if they live out their other channels and not the channel of the beat. I mean, they can be wonderful in doing all these 3 other channels, but if it's not including their unique direction, there's never going to be a satisfaction. So there will not be a response for this person unless it is to go their unique individual direction. All right, and let's go to Kiolani. I hope I'm saying that right. There you are. If you can unmute yourself, you can come on the camera. Happy to hear your question.
Hi there. Okay,
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi there.
Great. Okay, first, just want to say I love what you're sharing. Thank you so much for being here. This is great. So I was curious with this chart you're given as an example, because I've heard Ra talk about how the sacral channels are like the verb. This describes the action in response, but the defined hanging gates are like an adjective that kind of flavors the action of that verb. So I'm curious, in a chart like this, it's like responding to that mutated direction, but only if it brings the right pattern or flow of the 5. I'm curious how that works together.
I'm not really used thinking about it in this way, so maybe you can help me out. How would you put it yourself? I mean, this verb is going their unique individual direction, I guess, right? And if it's an adjective, I don't know how to keynote the 5th gate into that. In this particular example you want me to do, I would say, if you take your time and wait, you'll be able to release your power and go in your unique individual direction and be really satisfied because you'll be more of yourself in your own power. But I'm not sure I'm answering your question.
Yeah, I guess my question is kind of about if you have the full channel and then a couple defined gates there, do those defined gates do they respond differently or kind of affect the action of that full channel?
Okay, now I understand.
response?
Yes, of course they are important. The other defined gates, activated gates, whatever that is. Yeah, they're important, but the main players are the channels, right? So sure, if this person, for example, whoever that is, responds, then not only will they have the power to respond and to engage and dedicate themselves to whatever they do, but in their own flow, in their own timing, they will really discover unexpected things and succeed in bringing the closure to something and bringing growth to themselves and to other people, growth over here. It all works together, obviously. Is
Cool.
that what
Thank
you
you.
were asking about?
Yeah. I was just curious to hear your perspective on that. As
Hmm.
someone with, I have a few channels and then a couple of hanging gates, and I was curious if you had any, thoughts on how that works together.
Yeah, it all works together. And by the way, if you have more than one channel that defines the sacral center, then you can look and decide which channel. I mean, usually there is one that you can say, well, this is the priority. This is the most important one, be it because one of the gates of that channel is part of the incarnation cross, for example, or because it is the overall circuitry predominance. Like if you have like 4 collective channels, one of them in the sacral, and then you have like one tribal in the sacral, you can probably say the collective is more important. There are different ways of looking at it, but I mean, all of these channels work at once, so you can look at it in this way. Ultimately, the sacral is only going to respond to something that will allow this person live out both of these channels simultaneously, and of course the gates that are there on top of that, and of course everything else, right? But if you really want to zoom in and to really get what is the essence of the sacral response, the essence is in the channels, because that is what animates us. This is the life force. This is what defines the sacral. So if you have more of them, all of them have, are need to be like part of that. It's like the sacral will take everything into consideration in its own way, that is again beyond the conscious mind, and then just decides on the best course of action that will allow you to live your design, all of it, in the most way, the most optimal way. So yeah, it all works together. Sure.
Cool. Thank you.
Sure, welcome. Let's see. There was a question there. Somebody, Casey, uh, Casey wanted to ask a question. And anybody else who wants to ask a question, you're welcome. Let me know. Okay, questions in the chat. Okay. Okay. If you have emotional authority as a generator, do we focus on the child? Okay, I'll speak about emotional generator just in a moment. And okay, I'll just what is this? 59.1. Yeah, I mean there is a question about an emotional generator. That is different. I'm talking about the sacral inner authority for now. It largely applies to even emotional generators, but of course the authority is emotional, so it's a whole different deal. So let's just be clear on that. Yeah. Anyways, let's go back to what I had here. And what was that? Okay, I want to give you another example. Now we're coming to this channel 63. And again, as a principle, going back to the quote from Genoa, authority is always operating within the context of the channel that defines the authority center. Going back to this chart, gate 60 and gate 3, obviously the channel of mutation, right? Where the energy fluctuates and initiates. What could this person be responding to? Now, it is a no-brainer. In fact, it is a no-brainer. This person's sacral center, this person's life force, irregardless of anything else they have in their chart, all these 4 other channels over here. The ultimate priority, the ultimate must, before anything else can happen correctly, is that this person is going to be waiting for their moment to bring about change, to bring about mutation, to take down and tear down the old order of something and establish a new order. Waiting, despite their probably their urge to bring the damn change already. I mean, it's been too late yesterday. Let's change things. Let's change the world. Let's change whatever. There's this huge pressure to bring the change into the world, and they're going through their own changes all the time, always fluctuating between chaos and order and back and forth. But if they can wait, not try to initiate the changes in the world, but wait for the right moment so that the change can happen through them, through their energy. That is what the sacral will respond to. It's not going to respond to other things unless it involves this quality. No, it needs to have this quality of being able to bring about mutation, to bring about complete restructuring and quantum leap to another level of being, whatever, it's like these people are like caterpillars that are turning into a butterfly, at least several times a year, always going through these mutative changes, taking anybody that's in, around them through these mutative changes. It's like they're agents of change. They always bring other people into that as well, but they need to do that in response. And so if we look at the sacral response, you can say, well, dear MG friend, 2-4 MG friend over here, whoever you are, yes, I speak to you about the sacral response. And what does it mean for you? Well, it means that your life force is available predominantly for you bringing new order of things in the world, for you mutating that which is into something else. That's what your life force is going to be available. And by the way, you will know when the moment is right, because it's just going to happen through you. It's just going to happen. You can't force it. You can't force the timing. Again, it pays to wait. After all, again, the gate of waiting is over here. So that is what this sacral is going to be responding to. Now, within this foundational, like priority number one of this design, that these people are going through these mutative processes, then everything else can be kind of add on to it. But if you just start sharing things because you want to stimulate people that they should go seeking something that will, help them fix the problems, okay, I'm just kind of weaving in these three channels over here. However good of a stimulator and storyteller you are, however talented you are in getting on the wavelength with other people and kind of enthusiastically sharing your solutions to all the problems you see, however well you can transmit that, and you feel like, oh, I want to do that, I want to help them and all of that, it's never, ever, ever going to give you satisfaction unless it happens within the foundation of your response. And your sacral is never going to be responding to something that would prevent you from going through changes and becoming more empowered being, which is your whole deal. Like, this is a format channel, by the way. These channels between the root and the sacral are extremely significant. Even gates in these channels are extremely significant, but the channel itself is like, it formats your whole design. It's like everything else that happens in your design is formatted by this channel of individual circuitry. So yeah, I'm just throwing in these examples over here, just one more, and then I'll be happy to take more questions. But again, like, what is this person going to be responding to? Well, this person is going to be responding to be empowered, to be in their power, right? This is the sacral center, which is powerful, the gate of power, the gate of intuitive clarity. I mean, this is a great duo. We can say that it's the spontaneous response, spontaneous, splenic, intuitive, right? Spontaneous response. The spleen informs the sacral. They're linked, they're connected. In response, this person is going to be powerful. The channel of power design of the archetype. Wow, cool, right? Yeah, I mean, it's all about your personal power. And you've got another individual channel over here. Yes, it's about empowerment. Why not? Go get it. Here, as I said, 2 channels, right? So in your flow, giving it your all, discovering and succeeding where others fail through your response, as you, through your response, connect with that which makes you alive, that allows you to be in your flow and bring closure, okay? And yeah, I see your chart is on Telegram. I don't see Telegram here, but and I can't, it'd be crazy for me to be looking there. Okay, before we go into emotional generators, any questions about what the response is? How do you experience it? I'm also happy to, okay, what practical exercises and simple language can an adult use to help a sacral authority child? understand their sacral response. And if the child is amplifying with extreme emotions, how best to support them? Okay, that's two different topics. Of course, if the child has an open solar plexus, like here, it is really helpful to explain to them the deal of amplification of emotions. And for anybody, if you have an open solar plexus, your authority is making decisions about emotional reality. You shouldn't make the decision where the emotions enter into you from outside and you amplify them and try to deal with it there. No, you need to pass it over to your sacral center. So for example, you can be amplifying somebody's emotional wave and be twice as high because you really feel, wow, this is great, this is exciting. You may go, okay, I'm going to be involved. But actually, if you learn to track your sacral response, over time, you will be able to discern between the pleasant amplification of somebody's emotional wave and your sacral actually saying, but I'm not really on board. Like at the beginning, if you just met human design and this is the moment you start tracking the response and learning what it is, you probably won't be able to do that. But over time, you can experience situations where it's really exciting, really emotionally charged in a positive way, really enjoyable, even pretty sexual. It could be pretty sexual, and yet your sacral is going to say, hey, but I don't want to get involved in any way, especially not sexually, even though it's really charged in all kinds of pleasant feelings. Your sacral is saying, actually, I'm not involved. I'm not responding to it. Now, again, at the beginning, you probably won't be able to make that distinction, but it's all about fine-tuning your capacity to really see what the response is. Okay. So what about the child? Well, do you like doing it? Right? It's probably one of the questions you can ask your child because they like playing in the playground. It's obvious. They may like painting. They may like drawing. They may like even reading books. They may then go like, yeah, I don't really like this. Of course, you need to like certain things you need to discern, like, just because the child doesn't like it, it doesn't mean you shouldn't ask them to do that, like brushing their teeth in the evening. Yeah, I don't like brushing my teeth. You told me I should only do things that I like to do. Tough luck. That's life. If you don't brush your teeth, you're gonna lose them. You don't want that. So brush them. What can you do? But not all conditioning is bad conditioning, right? This is a pretty useful conditioning, okay? Like a personal hygiene and so on. But in general, like you will see, probably as a parent, you'll see if the child enjoys it or not, and I mean, for generators, the guidance is like, if you enjoy, do it. If you don't enjoy it, and of course, it can be mental, not enjoyment. There can be things, but yeah, just individually, you'll see how to guide them. Just I think that the main point is like, especially if they're open in the solar plexus, just make them aware of that and all the other things. But yeah, that's my take on that. I don't really spend that much time talking to children about human design, so I can't really say more than that. I mean, unless we have a specific chart and go into the depth, and then I'll be saying things. But in this way, that's it. I wonder, is there somebody who has a sacral authority and would just like to play with me a little bit, give me their birth data? I'm going to share their chart and we can fine tune what it means to respond for them. If somebody who would like that, just come on the mic, come on the camera. I'll just punch in your birth data over here, share the chart. And I'll be asking you, well, how do you experience a response and where do you experience it? What's your experience of it? And how would you describe it? Caroline. Paris. Okay, can you unmute yourself?
Good morning.
Good morning, Caroline.
My
okay.
birth date
yeah,
is
just one sec. I'm gonna put your name there and your birth data. And so what is the date?
11/27, November 27th, 1959.
1959. What time?
At 3:44 a.m.
Okay, and where?
Quincy, Quincy,
Okay,
Illinois.
Illinois.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Illinois and QUI. Quincy. I got it. Quincy Adams.
Quincy.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, but I need a sacral generator. Sorry, I said the sacral generator. So if somebody who has a sacral authority, you have an emotional inner authority, right?
Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
No worries. Somebody with a sacral inner authority. Do we have someone? Sacral authority generator. Do we have somebody who would like to play? Come on, I know there are some sacral generators here. Sure. Nikki, yeah, come on, come on. Let's turn on the mic, turn on the camera. Let's see you. Let's hear you. Wonderful. Okay. Nikki, can you unmute yourself and give me your birth data? Hi.
Hi. 19 November 1981.
Okay, 1911, 1989.
1981.
81, okay,
Yeah.
81. And what time?
1340.
Okay, and where?
Lapeer, Michigan.
Okay. Okay, USA, Michigan. It's together, right?
Yes, Lapeer.
P-E. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Lapeer.
right there.
Okay, so 19th of November, 1981, 1340, right? Yeah, that's it?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. And maybe one more person. You can just turn on the camera, whoever's there at Jonah, but you can raise your hand, keep raising your hand, but we can get back to you. So, Nikki, where do you, when you respond, where do you experience the response? What is your experience of response?
Oftentimes when I notice it, I feel it in the top of the back of my throat.
Okay.
Which is not in my gut, but that's what I notice.
Right. Interesting.
Yes. Or sometimes it's really, really low in my stomach.
Okay. Now, can you think of a moment when you've experienced the response in the recent past? And you don't need to even describe it. You can, you don't have to. Can you think of a moment?
Yes.
Okay. Now, can you go back to that moment? Maybe if you close your eyes is better, but you don't have to if you want. And just go back to that moment and just describe to me what you felt in that moment, that you felt and you knew you're responding. What was happening within you?
Kind of like sparkles almost feeling rising up through the center of me.
Okay.
And then bouncing, a lot of bouncing.
Okay, lovely. Bouncing and sparkles rising up in the center. Okay, now, is that something you can say that's pretty much there every time when you respond?
Even I don't
in a subtle
notice
way,
it every
or
time. I think so, but I'm not always aware of it.
okay. So my suggestion is that you learn to track it. And just pay attention to whenever you feel this experience, this felt sense, these sparkles that are bouncing and sparkling up in the center, because it can be there quite subtle, but it can still be there, and you'll learn to track for it. That's the felt sense, what we call about, what we say when we speak about like the sacral response. Like if you learn to track it, these sparkles rising up in the center, this bouncy energy in you. Sometimes it's more obvious, sometimes it's not really that obvious, but when you recognize it, this is like your guidance for the response. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's like, if you know that this is your response, and by the way, usually I check it with people, like if I do a reading or in class, we have more time, I check it, I check the experience. Sometimes what they're describing isn't necessarily the response, but what you're saying, it feels like that is the response. So it has something, a particular quality that is there every time you experience response, right? So that response then takes you into being engaged with something, to, into saying yes to something, which is a big part of your mission here, like to say yes, to be able to release all of that accumulated energy in the gate 14. It's like this wealth of energy that you then can release in a way that you'll be powerful, that you will be in your power, that you will be able to express yourself and stimulate other people, to search something that is meaningful for them. So everything works in your design if you respond. So I just, wanted to get you to actually describe the sensation where in the body you're experiencing it and give it a name, which you did. Sparkles, rising up, bouncy energy. That's like what you can stick with, pay attention to that. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for playing. Okay,
Thank you.
cool. Let's go to somebody over at Jonas, and then we'll go to Julia. So whoever's there, over at Jonas, what's your name? Can you unmute yourself? Oh, sorry, I've muted you again. Can you just unmute yourself one more time? Thank you. Hi there.
Hi.
Hi.
My name's Joshua.
Okay. Okay, and so what's your birth date?
It's 12/12/1977.
Okay, and what time?
12:12 a.m.
Okay, that's funny.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
Where is that? Where was that?
That's in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay. Okay, here we are. Okay, cool. So we've got two channels. And so obviously your response is only gonna be available for you where it's gonna whatever you do is that correct? 12:12? Was it like 12 minutes past noon? Is that right?
No, sorry, a.m. a.m. So
wow.
yeah, 00:12.
Okay, 00. So that wasn't probably your chart, or yeah. So anyways,
Close.
we've got these two channels over here. So,
Yeah.
concentration and dedication and being in the flow, right? The rhythm and the flow. So whatever you do, if you respond, your response will allow you to get in your flow, and in your flow, concentrate and dedicate yourself to something. Okay. But this being in the flow, being in the flow, the rhythm that is your own unique rhythm that you share with other people, and this concentration that you also share with other people, these are both collective channels. This is what happens always when you respond. And if you we've got this other aspect of you, which actually is a split from your, from this first element of definition. So we've got two collective channels and two tribal channels. And this tribal channel, these two tribal channels are expressing into the throat through the ego center, which is a manifesting channel. There is a lot of temptation to just go from the willpower and want to, gather people together, especially because it's part of your incarnation cross, and really sell your education that you bring them, your message, which you have as a fourth line in your profile. But unless you do it in response, you really won't be in your flow and you won't enjoy yourself. You won't be concentrating fully and you won't enjoy yourself. So just a little bit of background over here. And can you just tell me, like, in the recent experience of response, when you've responded recently, what was the experience like? Where you felt it in your body? How could you describe it?
Sometimes I feel it in different places. I know it's somewhere like lower on the lower side of my body. And I don't know if it's a mental thing or not, but sometimes I feel it as if it's like outside of my body, and I feel it in a sense of like my experience of time shifts in kind of an expanded way.
Okay. So can you just recall one specific moment where you know that you've responded, and just like go back in your body to that moment, and just tell me what you feel in your body. What do you experience in your body when that happened?
Yeah, I think I just feel well, I guess this goes, I don't know. I feel like a grounding, I mean, it's not moving up, but it feels like it's pulling down. I don't know if that's
Okay, okay. Where in your body do
And then
you
I,
feel
then I,
that?
yeah, then I sort of like feel it all expanding in my entire body and like outside of my body.
Okay. Initially, what's the initial place in your body where you felt that?
It's like low. It's like maybe like in my like lower stomach, or maybe even into my pelvis, maybe.
Okay. How would you call it if you could call it somehow?
Mm. I don't know.
And if you knew, how would you call it?
uh, yeah, I would just call it. I would call it a like an enlivening, an enlivenment. I don't know if that's a word.
I use it.
Yeah. Okay.
It is if you say it.
Yeah. Enlivening.
Okay, cool. I like that. Now,
Okay.
could you say that this quality is present whenever you respond?
Like every time I respond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your response.
Cool.
And now that you know it, because you knew it before, but now that you have it like this kind of formally, like labeled, because you recognize that somehow that energy happening in your lower belly, almost in your pelvis, enlivening you. Now that you know that this is what you're tracking for, this is your felt sense, this is your sacral authority responding, you can check every experience against that and go like, does that have this enlivening quality to it or not? Right? And that's how you can know whether you're responding or not. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
And this is how you make this whole amazing, mind-blowing system of human design actually practical and actionable. This is what it's all about. There's nothing else to it. I mean, sure, there are a gazillion things to it, but this is it. Right? Now we can be looking at your chart and we can be looking at the openness in your design, and we can go like, yeah, there is a high probability that, for example, when you, I don't know, feel like you should criticize something or someone, gate 18, because that would bridge your split, that's most probably where you're initiating. Okay. You probably know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, these are like useful additional tips and signposts, as Ra used to say, signposts that will help you easier like track whether you're responding or initiating. But ultimately, I mean, with the help of all these other things, if you have a good reading, obviously, the more you track your response, the more you don't need to worry about any of that. You just stay connected to it, and you only eventually do that where the enlivening quality is present. So thanks for playing with me.
Okay. Thank you.
Wonderful.
I'd like to
Great.
do one from here
Thanks.
too. Can you just lower your hand and then raise it again?
Uh,
Still hear us?
we're gonna go to Christine now because Christine was in the queue. And I think that's gonna be the last person, because then we need to move on, because I really do want to talk about MGs. So sorry, everybody else. Maybe you can just turn off the videos anyways, and let's go to Christine. Do we have Christine there? Christine? Can you turn on the camera and... Okay, Christine's not there. Let's go to Alex, who was the next... No, who was there? Christine is there?
No, I'm here. It wasn't letting me unmute. Hi.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Can you...
It wasn't
you
there.
are.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. And can you turn on the video? Is it possible?
I think, is it on? Is it not on?
It's not on. It's not on. I mean, it's on, but it's just like, okay, I can survive. Let's just be there even without your picture, and let's
I'm
do
actually giving a massage right now, so that's probably part of why you can't see me.
Okay. I don't know why we can't see. Oh, there you are. Because it's just too dark. Okay. Okay, that's funny. So what's your birthday?
April 8th, 1980.
Okay, April what?
8.
Okay.
4-8. right before
Yeah.
Rod's birthday.
1980.
1980
Okay.
in Detroit, Michigan at
What time?
12:52 p.m.
Oh, you already wrote it there. Okay, got it.
I did.
12:52, Detroit, Michigan. All right. So does that? Well, you have a solar plexus inner authority. Oh, I'm looking for just sacral inner authority.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, that's
So
fine.
we'll
I'll
go
let someone
to
else go.
yeah. Sorry about that. We'll go to
No, you're
Julia.
fine.
We'll go to Julia. Sorry, Christine. Julia, are you there? Can you unmute?
Here I am.
Okay. Okay, there you are.
I just typed my date, but I can
Okay,
say it out
there you
loud if you
are.
prefer.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay. Julia. Oops.
October
18th of
18,
10,
1972.
1972. And then what time?
Oh, I didn't put it. Is 6:30 p.m. 18:30.
Okay, and then we have Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
Okay, is that your chart?
That's my chart.
Cool. A lot of individual people here. Okay, so we'll play with the 3410 because that is not the centering circuit. That is a centering circuit, not the integration. So instead of 3457, we'll go with 3410. Yeah. So your sacral will only respond to something that will allow you to explore that which you love doing. Okay. To follow your convictions, especially the convictions of your life force. Now, when you respond, how do you experience it? Where do you experience it?
Is actually a nice combination of many of the things you described, because the energy is there, the enlivening, the body response, but it has to be a piece of engagement for me to really feel the depth of the sacral response. In other words, the backup to sustain the energy to do whatever I'm doing. But the engaging part is very important in my case.
So if you can go back to a recent experience where you've responded, can you remember a moment where you've responded?
Yeah, right now, when you suggested
okay.
if somebody wants, I was like, yes.
Perfect. So what happened in your body in that moment? If you can go back to your body, what happened?
Well, there's I don't know how to describe. There's a consistency in the energy to be there. Like the body is just like here.
Okay. Was that somewhere? Can you pinpoint it somewhere in the body, like a place in your body?
The lower belly, definitely.
Lower belly. Okay. And this consistency of energy, if you were to call it with just one word, how would you call it?
Presence.
Presence. Cool. Okay. Now, by the way, if you find a name or nickname for your sacral response, you can change it anytime you want. Okay. But so you don't need to stick with it. It can change. Okay. But this presence, do you feel this presence in the lower belly, which is the essence of what you told me, the presence in the lower belly, this consistency and presence in the lower belly? Is it there every time you respond? Is it something that you find like be strong, be it small and subtle, but it's there, this quality is there?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, perfect. So now you know what it means to respond, right? I mean, you probably knew it before, but it helps to be able to kind of speak about it in this way, because now you know, okay, what is the felt sense? Is it the consistency, the presence in my lower belly? Is it there or not? And that helps you to cut through the mind. That helps you to cut through all the other things that you amplify through the openness in your design, right? Because especially with your design, you may be so tempted to live out this gate 20.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because this gate 20 would make you a manifesting generator. And also, it would bring all the sacral energy into expression in the throat. And also, gate 10, gate 34, and gate 57 are all looking at gate 20. I mean, in terms of the centers, the most challenging is the ego center, and the next one is the sacral. But in terms of the gates, This is the most important open gate, harmonic gate, which is not activated in your design. So the gate of present, the gate of now, if you had it, you would be wired to do things straight away right now. Now, you are a sacral generator. You're not emotional. You're not designed to wait for emotional clarity. Furthermore, you have a splenic center defined, right? So your design is pretty fast. Okay. But with the open route, and especially with this gate 20 being open, you may be way too fast for your own good. So it's just one of those signposts that when you realize that you're pushing, because initiating is basically you're just pushing from your mind. I mean, you take all that sacral energy and you kind of force it, to do something. It's in response, it does it on its own. If you initiate, you force it. You push to do things straight away, right now, as fast as possible. Right, that is a signpost for you that you're probably not responding, that you're probably initiating. Right.
Yes.
And if you do that, then of course you will realize sooner than later that you don't really enjoy it. It doesn't give you. I mean, you may accomplish what you set out to accomplish, but then you realize, okay, but I'm not really enjoying it. I'm not really satisfied. Right? Yeah. Okay. So that's just this signpost. You seem to be very aware of that. That's cool. So you're probably getting better at it, right? As we all do over time. And the more you track for this presence in your lower belly, the more satisfied you will be. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for playing,
Thank
Julia.
you so
Of
much.
course, we could spend whole hour or an hour and a half talking about your chart, but just playing this game. Thank you. Playing this game. Thanks a lot. Okay. Yeah. So let me just briefly say something about generators with an emotional authority, and that is that, and you can, yeah, that is that in your case, obviously, the authority is not the sacral response, but the authority is your emotional clarity. Now, I like to use the words clearly feel to make this more tangible, because again, emotional clarity is a buzzword. You hear it all the time, but to clearly feel, to take your time, to allow for your feelings to go up and down on the emotional wave, to become clear about something on the level of feelings, where the nervousness goes away and something falls into place and you experience a relaxation. And it can be even super brief, but there's this moment of relaxation, something falls into place, and you feel clearly that you should either accept or reject something, say yes to it or no. Until the clarity is there, you shouldn't be involved. So if you are emotionally defined generator, you may experience this rising up in your frequency of life force. In other words, you may experience the response, but it's not okay for you to just go ahead with it straight away. You need, on top of that, you need this to be okayed by your emotional clarity. Now, in many cases, in many situations, contrary to popular belief, or at least contrary to what is being said about emotional authority, of course you can be clear straight away. I mean, if the truck is coming at you and you're in the middle of the road, you don't need to wait for emotional clarity, whether you should jump away, because the clarity is there straight away. In situations where you've been through something before, even maybe many times, you know exactly what is your clarity. The clarity is there about that situation. But in way more situations in life, things happen for the first time. It's not something you've experienced before. It's not a truck coming at you where it's so obvious. And you just simply need to wait for the clarity. So, if you have gate the channel 63, like this nice guy who was there, the first person who was on the video, and he can come on the video if you want. If you have this channel and have the channel of mutation 63 and emotional authority at the same time, sure, this channel in and of itself, because it is coming and going, fluctuating, you can't really know. You really need to rely on your emotional clarity to let you know whether it's really correct for you to be engaged with. Okay, that's just an add-on for emotional generators. And if there is any question about that, just let me know. Either type it or just raise your hand or just come on the mic straight away. But we don't really have time to go into the detailed explanation of emotional authority and then kind of synthesizing the emotional generator. That's a different topic. The response is important. It needs to be there. Your clarity will never be there for something unless the sacral center is available, unless the power is available, unless you've responded. But the response in and of itself in an emotional generator is not enough. Okay, so let's leave it there and let's now speak about the difference between generator and the manifesting generator, and actually the manifesting generator. And I need to take like a 4-minute break just to shake the energy a little bit, and I'll be back in 4 minutes and we'll get into this final topic of this presentation. I'm really looking forward to it. So let's be back in 4 or 5 minutes. All right, so welcome back, and let's take a look at MG's manifesting generator. So everything I've said so far, pretty much everything, applies to all generators, and the pure generator is the generator that really responds and goes step by step by step. Now, what we know about MGs, about manifesting generators, is that they also obviously are generators. They also have enveloping magnetic aura that is ready to be building something. That's why it is the same type, even though we have these two subtypes within generator type. But what we know about MGs is that they are really going fast, right? And sometimes way too fast. So, sometimes they're skipping things that are important and they need to come back, and as opposed to the pure generator, which is going progressively step by step. The MGs, as you can see on this picture, they're just all over the place, right? And why is that? Why is that? I mean, I've got some MG charts over here. You can see charts for different manifesting generators. Yeah. We are looking at the type where we have a motor connected to the throat. Okay, whatever the combination is, I mean, you can see here is a motor as a solar plexus connected to the throat. Here is the only archetypal manifesting and generating chart, manifesting and generating channel 3420. Again, motor connected to the throat. Same thing here. Here we have ego to the throat, bringing the manifesting element, because that is the manifesting channel, 2145. By the way, what are the manifesting channels? We have 3 manifesting channels, and then we have 1 manifesting and generating channel. So one of these 3 channels, they need to be there, or there could be a combination, right? Somebody can have a defined motor, and through the splenic center, the motor gets connected to the throat. It's a still connection of a motor with a throat, and then we have generating channels. It would still be a manifesting generator. The point is that manifesting generator, having the motor connected to the throat, has one very special capacity. And this special capacity is, let me just find an MG chart. Is this an MG chart? Okay, this is an MG chart. We have 3 motors, all, you can see ego, sacral, and root connected through the splenic center to the throat. And of course, we have a sacral defined, which is a prerequisite for this person to be a generator. So we have a manifesting generator. Now, what happens when you have a motor connected to the throat? And that goes for manifestors as well. It means there is an energy that can be immediately expressed, that is in immediate connection with the center where the energy manifests. Okay, the willpower can manifest itself straight away through the throat, because it is connected through the throat. It doesn't matter that it's not happening through the channel 2145, the manifesting channel. It's happening through the spleen, but it's still there. Okay, now this root center, again, can be immediately expressed through the throat. Okay, yeah. And so when that happens, this quality of just taking you into action is present. In manifestors, I call it a surge. There's this surge of energy that takes a manifestor into action. And that's how the manifestor can recognize that, okay, this is my energy engaging. It's not just the mind telling me I should do that or I shouldn't do that. It's the energy engaging. It takes a manifestor into action. It's the same without the, it's there is a difference obviously in how it affects other people. Manifestor has a huge impact on others and really brings something very new into the world. Manifesting generators doesn't have that kind of manifestor impact, and they're not meant to. But there is this quality of energy surging ahead and taking them into action. Okay, now, how do you reconcile that with the overall mantra for generators, waiting to respond? Okay, now, we've established, that the response, oh, sorry, where is my rep about the response? Well, I'll just say the response is rising up in the frequency of your life force. Okay, so when we say the response is energy rising up, that is ultimately what it's all about for any generator, be it a pure generator, be it a manifesting generator. If you have a sacral inner authority, it's ultimately about this quality of your life force rising up. Okay, so ultimately, this always needs to be there. Okay, so now when you look at a manifesting generator, just find my chart. If you look at the manifesting generator, of course, there's going to be impulses that will take me into action because these motors are directly connected with the throat, which is the expression center, which is the center where energy manifests. Okay. Now, to tell MG that this is wrong and they shouldn't do it is like cutting their legs off from them. It's impossible not to have these impulses. We're designed to have these impulses to go ahead and act, right? But at the same time, we know that as generators, we shouldn't initiate. So what is the difference between when it's right and when it's wrong, when it works and when it doesn't work, when it leads to satisfaction and when it leads to frustration? So here is my take on it, okay? This has taken me quite a few years trying to wrap my head around it and really being not being satisfied with the overall way this is described. And I think in a way that actually is quite disempowering to MGs, okay? So my take on it is that as an MG, because I'm a generator, obviously I need to have the response. In other words, energy rising up. And then that is the ultimate go-ahead for me that I can engage with something. Not that I can, but that I am already engaging with something. Now, besides me being able to respond to things that come to me from outside, just as the pure generator is, on top of that, as an MG, I have my own impulses that take me into action, but these are just impulses and need to be checked, agreed on by the sacral and its response. It's kind of a similar deal as if you have a generator with an emotional authority, okay? The sacral response is there, but it needs to be okayed by the actual inner authority, in that case, the solar plexus, emotional authority, okay? Now here, with an MG, I can have these impulses that take me into action, that can be like quite rapid. There is like, in my case, immediate, because 3420, expressing my great power, 34, right now, gate 20, is charismatic, and it's empowering, it's an individual channel, and is what gives me satisfaction, okay? But when the impulse is there, it's okay. It's not like I shouldn't have these impulses, It's not that I only need to respond to something that comes to me from outside. I can have these impulses that come from within, and when the energy in the sacral center comes on board, when it engages, is enduringly engaged and connected with that impulse, great. That's what I can do. This works. Okay. But if it's just an impulse, and because it's an impulse and I follow it impulsively without checking with my sacral, it can be something that really doesn't belong to me. I can be jumping all over the place, skipping all of the important things, and learning through trial and error, that actually this doesn't give me satisfaction. And that's a signpost for me to step back and realize, okay, I was probably pushing it too hard, of course, with an open route. Yes, MG with an open route. I remember Genoa once said it's like a Superman on cocaine. I was laughing pretty hard because, that's really how I've experienced myself many times. Okay. It's just too much. It's quite a lot of power. And if you're not, if you're not using it correctly, you're misusing it, and if it's just an impulse and the sacral doesn't get on board, it doesn't work. But if you have so as an MG, what I want to say to you, to all of the MGs out there, it's not just about response. It is ultimately about response, but the response doesn't have to be only to things coming to you from outside. The response can be also to your inner impulse that happens from within, because you have the manifesting element to you. You have the impulse to go ahead into things, which is correct and works, and is correct and works as long as your sacral response actually happens. As long as your life force is actually rising up, connecting with that impulse from within, that's fine. You can be following and responding not only to things from outside, but also responding to your own inner impulses. And this, as I see it, is an empowering take on what it means to be an MG, as opposed to, what is usually said and what's, I think, quite damaging or disempowering take on MGs, which is you should only respond to something that comes to you from outside. That's why it was so bloody hard for me to wrap my head around what it means to respond, because, it's like with an MG, you can't just tell them that and expect them, to go with it and be happy, because like we have these impulses that we need to follow. And yes, it is said that, if you're an MG, you dip your toes in the water to see if you actually want to go in. If you're an MG, you start doing something and you might just as well immediately stop doing it because there is an impulse that takes you into action, but then you go like, yeah, but I'm not really with it. I don't really enjoy it. Okay. So that's a sign for you that you shouldn't do it. But it's important to acknowledge these impulses and to be able to follow them so that we don't, in the name of some, dogma, that is like, yeah, I'm only meant to respond. Yes, it is all about response, but the response can be to something that comes from within you as an MG. Okay. Now, ultimately, and I mentioned that before, how do I know that I'm responding? Well, I enjoy it. Okay. I mean, you don't always have to be enjoying everything you do, but you just know is right to do. Filing your tax return isn't probably something you love doing, but you have to go with it. You have to do it, right? But that is always the signpost. Like you enjoy it or you don't. You have the energy available. It's there, and I just want to put here one more time these keynotes here: response, connection, engagement, endurance. So yes, as an MG, you can have the impulses that come from within, but the sacral needs to come on board, be engaged in an enduring way, be connected with it. In other words, responding to it, and then it's okay. So this is what I wanted to share. I think it's really important for MGs to know that, to hear that. And we have like a few minutes left, so if there's any question about that, I'm happy to answer. Either it's absolutely clear or, hey, hi there. It says viruses. Hello. Can you unmute yourself?
I am, and this is Carolyn Paris, and I do virus, so nobody wants to plug in.
Okay. Okay.
So, as a MG emotional authority, and when you're talking about that inner knowing of doing something, and I have the drive for, but I don't have the consistency.
If you are an emotionally defined generator, even as an MG, it's always more complex, and in the same time, it just boils down. The point is somewhere different. The point is, how do you clearly feel about it? What is your clarity about it? That's the point. You know, the clarity is gonna let you know. I mean, you know, one way, like, it's always more confusing when we speak about it because we're trying to describe something that happens within us energetically and we're dissecting it and we speak about this aspect and that aspect, but it happens all at once. And you can learn to recognize this felt sense that tells you, I'm clear about it. I'm clear enough about it. I can go ahead or not, right? So yes, one way to look at it is it's more complex, but it's more complex in terms if we try to dissect it and describe it logically. But ultimately, for everybody, their inner authority is something they can learn to discern within themselves, this felt sense. And it's like, yes, you have these impulses from within, your sacral needs to get on board, but your emotional authority needs to okay it. But it sounds too complex, you know, so we can just focus on, yes, you're a generator, response is everything for you, but it, you know, but it needs to be okayed by your clarity. Even these impulses, right? This impulse that's there. Okay, you have an impulse, but are you nervous about it or do you feel clear about it? You know, if you feel clear about it, if there's a clarity, you can follow it. Yeah, we would have to look at your chart and be more specific to help you, you know, navigate that better. But anytime we include the emotional authority, it's more confusing, and that's really not my goal here today. That would be just too much to involve in this one lecture here. But yeah, that's what I can say. Thanks for the question. Any other question about this this deal with MGs? Okay. Well, in that case, this is it. I just want to say I just want to use these two quotes from Genoa because I think they're really cool and really something that I'd like to leave you with. They're concerning openness. Openness is what we make decisions about. That's what I said already. Okay, so another quote. Openness is never the problem. The problem is with misunderstanding the energetic priorities in our definition. Just want to leave you with this thought. You know, many times in human design, you hear not self this, not self that, and you know everybody's trying to beat the not self to the death. But you know, the open ego doesn't mean you have a problem with proving yourself. It means you can be very sensitive to recognizing what's happening around you in the world with ego running crazy, right? And if you make your decisions about the reality of material world or the reality of emotional world from your authority, whatever that is, you have a correct relationship with these realities. So having an open center, it doesn't mean you have a problem from the get-go. Every design is perfect. And if we experience challenges, what we call the not self, then it's not because your design is problematic. It's because you're not really following your strategy and authority. And to close with, I'd like to invite you. This semester we have at Human Design America LYD starting pretty soon, September 24th. There is an ABC coming on November 14th. Rave cartography class is starting pretty soon as well, beginning of October. And I will be teaching PTL1, Professional Training Level 1, for anybody who has gone through, these three courses with whomever that is certified. And I'll be starting in February 2024, in a couple of months. So this is where you can find me and where you can find other teachers from Human Design America. And yeah, having said that, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for being here, and hope it was useful for you. And yeah, it's all about response. If you're a generator, let us find our response and go with it. Take care, my friends, and bye. I'm gonna turn off the recording.